welcome back to another episode of the Tech Talks Daily podcast. I'm your host, Neil C. Hughes, and I've got an exciting show lined up for you today. We've got a very special guest joining us. His name is Sachin Duggal, the mastermind behind Builder.ai. And this is an innovative platform that aims to revolutionize software development. Ultimately, his aim is making it as easy as ordering a pizza. And yes, you might be wondering, how's that even possible, right? Well, that's exactly what we'll be diving into today, because Sachin moved to San Francisco to build a photo sharing app, but his journey took an unexpected turn. Frustrated by the hardships he faced, he resolved to make the process easier for other entrepreneurs, especially those without a tech background. So what is their goal? To simply bring an app to every company and every new idea, from that century-old pizza shop wanting to digitize their ordering process to a new boutique needing help managing inventory. Essentially helping bring these businesses online at the click of a few buttons. And the best part is, you don't need to have any tech expertise to do it. So today we're going to be discussing the challenges of low-code and no-code platforms, how Builder.ai stands out in this crowded field, and how they tackle the common fears associated with software development. So buckle up and hold on tight, because it's time for me to beam your ears all the way to Dubai, and I want to learn more about the man who's determined to break down the barriers of software development and ultimately bring your ideas to life. So let's get him on now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so well, firstly, thank you so much for having me on the show, Neil. My name is Sachin Duggal. I'm the chief wizard and founder at Builder.ai. We are building a platform that's going to help the next 100 million ideas come alive. So it's a composable software platform. What does that mean? Think of it as Lego-like reusable features of code and design meets AI to let you build anything that your small business wants, that an entrepreneur wants, or that an enterprise wants to build.
Fantastic. And just when I thought tech evangelist was the coolest job title in the world, chief wizard, it doesn't get any better than that, does it?
It's a good escape from responsibility, yet it sounds it always also piques conversation, so it's good.
Awesome. And I'd love to find out more about the story behind the company. What experiences led you to start this company, and how have those experiences helped shape your mission and approach there?
It's an interesting one. We were building a photo sharing app in San Francisco, arguably the mecca of the tech world, and kept getting rogered trying to get an app built. And as two engineers realized, shit, if we can't get someone to build an app, there's no help for the little bakery down the road. And then we started hearing from our friends, I tried to get something built, failed, trying to get something built, failed. It was a dev shop here, it was a dev shop Y, like every part of the world. And then I think, we were also seeing the sort of reading the tea leaves, right? And seeing the macro trends. More and more small businesses had to become digital first. Then COVID hit, and my God, that just became overnight. More and more edge of enterprises were digitally transforming. More people were doing entrepreneurial ideas. All entrepreneurial ideas had to be digitally native. And so it was clear to me that the world was going to become software first, across every industry and every size of company. The issue, though, Neil, was that most people don't understand software. They don't understand product. And every single time, what we were seeing, you saw this in low code, you saw this in no code, you saw this in SaaS. We kept producing things that were canvases and saying, we've produced you a canvas. Go paint it. And if my little children have showed me something, when you give a kid a canvas and say, go paint something, go paint Picasso, it's pretty dismal. And then you give them 5 paintings of Picasso and say, go paint Picasso, it's a lot better. And then you say to them, here are 5 paintings of Picasso, obviously prints. You can cut and paste them onto yours and then do whatever you want on top. You kind of get masterpieces that you'll actually put on your wall. And the analogy is because they're not experts, right? Similar to how somebody who runs a retail store, somebody who runs a restaurant, somebody who works at the edge of a large corporation in the marketing team or in the finance team, they're not experts in building software. And so this got us sort of, really through the journey, we've learned one thing and one thing only that's very important, which is that there are many people building for the user that is technically sophisticated. There is almost no one building for the user that's technically not sophisticated, and they feel left out. And when people feel left out, it's kind of not nice. But also, it instills the fear of irrelevance. And the only thing more powerful than the fear of irrelevance is the fear of failure. And the problem is, for the ones that you instilled the fear of irrelevance, they're the ones that actually want to become digitally transformed. And the thing that stops them is the fear of failure, and they're stuck in this conundrum. And so everything that we've done at Builder from version 1 till now is all around, number one, getting customers to feel like they're understood. And number two, giving them like moments of excitement through the journey, so that this shouldn't be a tedious process or a difficult process. It needs to be a fun and exciting and exhilarating process.
So first of all, I love that analogy. And second of all, one of the things that attracted me to you and why I invited you on this podcast was when I read that you described software as a digital utility. So can you explain that concept in more detail and how this belief drives your work and everything that you do at Builder?
Let's start with utilities.
Yeah.
When was the last time you switched on a generator to put power in your house?
Since never.
Right. When was the last time you dug a well? Get water?
Not in this lifetime.
It kind of goes on. I'm not going to ask you about where you got gas from and everything else, but the story goes on, right? It's the idea that everybody needs it. It's just there. You didn't have to figure out how to get it. You just switched it on. You have flavors of it, and you can't live without it. And that's really the key. I think we've got to a world now where allowing people to achieve their human potential, and I say human potential, not potential, it's very important, getting people to feel empowered and satisfied in what they're doing, fundamentally needs software to help them. Because otherwise they're going to be at a disadvantage to the ones that can. And the other benefit around utility, and the use of the word utility, is an equilibrium. Everybody has a utility, from the richest person to the poorest person, from the most able to the least able. They all have access to the same utility. Now, they may have different shades of it, same fundamental utility. And I think being digitally native, access to software is a digital utility, and I think everyone needs it. A little like broadband to all intents and purposes.
Your goal ultimately is to make building an app as easy as ordering a pizza. So I've got to ask, how exactly do you achieve this, especially for, let's say we've got somebody listening from a small to medium-sized business who's got no technical knowledge, convinced themselves that they want to do it, but hey, it's just out of their reach. How would you explain it to them?
So one is explaining, and I'll come to that in a second, but ordering is, allowing software to be ordered as easy as ordering pizza. It's almost like a really carefully constructed sentence at our end. And the reason is, when you ask yourself, like, what can everyone do? What can everyone's grandma do? What can everyone's, 11-year-old do? What can everyone do? Everyone can talk.
Yeah. And
everyone can order pizza. And so this becomes your fundamental navigational experience that everyone can do. Right? And so we said, well, what everyone can't do is write a spec document, drag and drop widgets on a screen, draw complex UI. I had someone speak to me last week and said, oh, Sachin, you must feel threatened because now with ChatGPT, I can draw a UI on a napkin and it will make it for me. I say, that's outstanding. Can you draw me a UI for checkout, please? And he said, again, that's the point. Like, how many times have you checked out? You can't remember it, right? It's because you're not an expert in it. And so to me, the idea of letting people order software as easy as they would order from their favorite pizza place is important, because it means, number one, they're ordering. So they're talking about what they want. Number two, we're giving them suggestions. It's not like when you go to your favorite pizza place, you have unlimited options of topics. Like there's a selection criteria, there's filters. Is it vegetarian? Is it not? Is it vegan? Is it not? All sorts of things. And so really where this crystallizes, we're saying to a small business, just tell us about the problem you're trying to solve. As you talk to us, we will show you options, and you select the options. As you select the options, we'll ask you more questions. As you answer those questions, we'll show you more options. And then at some point in time, we'll say, we think you got enough. And the reason we can do that is we've built A knowledge graph, think of it as a construct of how you hold data. But this has it's like a little brain. It knows all the relationships and all the features and different types of customers and who needs what kind of feature when they're doing what kind of problem. And so we kind of know what you need as you're talking before you even written a line on a piece of paper. And we found that if we can get someone to just keep talking, actually it's so powerful, they feel quite natural at it. And then we prompt them with things to answer, we get the spec. And we can distill that to features, we can distill it to customization. If you're a micro SME, like a single store restaurant, we can ship you an app in a day and a bit. And if you're slightly bigger, then it could take a little bit longer just to get the customization done.
There is an argument that it is an incredibly crowded space out there. So for people looking at that, maybe they do a search on something like this, what would you say makes you stand out from other low-code, no-code platforms? And are there any unique features or services that your platform offers to customers, especially, again, customers, business leaders who lack tech expertise?
So number one, I don't think you can use anything else.
Yeah.
Because everything else needs an expert. Give you an example. Shopify. 80% of Shopify's customers come through partners. Those partners are consultants.
Yeah.
They charge you between 7 to 20 times the subscription fee. I tried to build a website yesterday for a friend of mine, last week. Spent 6 hours, 3 pages.
Yeah.
That website now effectively from opportunity cost perspective is $10,000 to build. But I was trying to help someone out. And I said, well, I'll sit with you and do it. They couldn't do it themselves. And so I think the first thing is, there isn't a system that exists today where you can just talk to it. Whether you talk to a human or you talk to it, it's irrespective, but that's it. You just have to talk and pick some options. I think the second is we're a composable software platform. So it could be mobile, could be web. A lot of these others, they constrain you to a device platform or a device size, a device type. Third is we give you a copy of the code, which is pretty bold if you ask me, because we're basically saying, here's a copy of the code. If you don't like us after a year, it's all yours. But what we actually see is people come back and keep adding features because their idea keeps growing. And then the last is we let you build anything within reason. We won't do VR, we won't do gaming. There's not a whole lot that you can't build otherwise. So this really sets us apart. But we start with the idea that what really sets us apart is we're dealing with a non-technical customer who does not want to be given a canvas. And that's the key.
I love that. And as you mentioned there, existing platforms, they always need to be complemented by a professional service or a consultant. And I've not really thought about it until you said it there. It's so obvious. But can you expand on that point? And how are you addressing that need? Because I think it holds so many businesses back, that thought of that subscription, that consultant, that service. So can you expand on how you're addressing this?
Yeah. Look, I think the first thing is, why do you need the consultant? You typically need consultants for 3 reasons. Number one, you don't know what you want. You kind of know what you want, but you don't know what you want. You'll say I need to be able to sell stuff. Well, what does sell stuff mean? Payments, checkout, delivery, saved cards, maybe customer loyalty. The average person that wants to sell online does not think of those things. They might think of 2 or 3 of them. So you need a consultant to help you figure out what you've not thought about. Most consultants do a poor job at this. Second, you have this grand vision of what a Picasso painting looks like, but you need an artist to come in and paint it for you because you don't know how to use a brush. So you need someone to do the customization. And the third, it was great. You got this far, you got it out the door. What happens when there's a problem? Who's going to fix it, support it? You got hacked, what have you? We distilled this back and said, okay, so there's 3 issues. There is how do we get inside your head to figure out what is it that you actually need and augment it with what we think you need. So that is an AI problem with all the different strata of AI, from machine learning to NLP to knowledge graph to reinforced learning. There is how do we build it for you? In our case, it's reusable design, reusable features, flows generated by AI. But then the last mile, especially if you're not a micro SME and a slightly more evolved idea, or I should say evolved, complex idea, you need experts. But if you're not technical, you don't know how to hire an expert in the first place because you're not technical. And so we created an expert network of thousands of developers and designers that work for these consulting companies, dev shops, but we grade them. And then we have algorithms that actually decide which expert is going to work on which feature for you. You never need to speak to the expert. We act as the translation there, right? It's like effectively Google Translate for software development. You talk in English and we convert it to spec.
Yeah.
And then the third is this stuff goes out of date faster than bad milk. And so how do we make it easy that you never need to worry about building that piece of software? Like our dream was you would never need to pay to build the same application again just because the technology stack changed. And so we've done this by what we call studio subscription. Part of it is this service called Care, a little like Apple Care, for example. And it just makes sure that if you added these 21 features, for as long as you pay the subscription fee, you'll never have to rebuild the 21 features ever again. Even if like Apple changed iOS or Android got changed, we would rebuild those features. And the reason we can do that is because we're building it at an industrial scale. So when we think about a feature, we don't think about it just for what Neil needs. We think about it what 1,000 Neils might need. And so when we make an update, because we have to obviously keep sending the feature to the next person, but as long as you pay the subscription, we keep making updates, and those updates keep going back to everyone else saying, hey, you benefited from like the guidance that came after you as long as you pay the subscription.
And it seems that on one side here, we've got this huge growing demand for apps. And on the flip side, of course, there's a high failure rate of software projects. So I'm curious, is there anything else you can share on how you help meet this demand whilst also ensuring the success of the software projects as well? Because we're in this period of uncertainty at the moment. I think every tech project is coming under close scrutiny. What kind of benefits, what kind of value, what kind of ROI does it offer, etc. There's so much a stronger focus on those things now, isn't there?
There is. And look, it's a bit of a loaded question because it's multifaceted, right? So one part of it is, well, how do we make sure it succeeds? Well, 80% of the code comes out of an engine, and that 80%'s been like tested to the wazoo. And at least in the case of sort of mid-market enterprise, in the case of micro SME, it's 100% out of the engine, 100% tested to the wazoo. You remove one huge part of the risk, which is the engineering risk. So we've removed engineering risk. Like our failure rate is less than 5%. Industry failure rate is 82%. Wow. So we've basically shifted the game that way. Second one comes in is, why does it fail? You built the wrong thing. Which is why we spent an over-indexed amount of time building the AI layer at the top, which basically gets inside your head or empowers the humans at our end to get inside your head to figure out what is it that you really, really need and guide you through the things that you don't need or the things that you might be missing. So that means we get the spec right. We're going from conversation to spec, right? So it makes it easier for you. So now we don't have a problem of building the wrong product. Third thing comes in, there aren't enough developers in the world. It's demand for about 500 million developers, supply about 50 million. By automating, on average, 60 to 80% of a piece of software's production, in the case of micro SMB, 100%, we just reduce the amount of humans we need to be able to build it. And then it comes down to your other point, which is, it's all under scrutiny. But if you take away the cost and you reduce the budget needed and you take away the risk of wrong product or bad engineering or missing features of bad engineering, the ROI in itself becomes much higher. Because what you've done is you've taken something that was a really consultative process and consulting exercise, and you've made it into something which is much more factorized in terms of how a large-scale car manufacturing plant might work. And it has much more predictableness to it.
And I'm curious, if you look back throughout your career and everything that you've experienced, are there any other reoccurring barriers to entry in the software industry that you encountered? And is there anything else that you set out to address these barriers? Because I imagine that a lot of this comes from what you saw back then, right, before the company was formed.
It is, and a lot of it actually is we've grown, right? So we always thought, build the software application and that's it. And then we realized, if we just get someone to build an app, well, then what if there's a problem? Where are they going to buy all the bits from? They don't understand about cloud. They don't know what payment system to use. So then we built a cloud platform marketplace of all the different partners. And we said to these partners, you've got to behave with our customers. You've got to give us a better price. We got to make sure that you're sort of up to the mark in terms of how you deliver to them. And then we said, okay, great. Now we've got something that can live and breathe and work. But, oh my God, our customers don't know how to engage with their customers digitally. They don't know how to be successful beyond code. And so then we've started now an exercise of saying, well, how do we get at least our small business customers to be successful with what they've built? What do they build? What does success mean? More revenue, more retention. And how do we demonstrate to them that they're being successful? Because people feel empowered when they feel like they're being successful and they can see it. So that's been a huge learning curve. Because we started off building a problem to solve the software development lifecycle, and we ended up solving a problem of how do we get people to be successful in being digitally native. And so it's a much bigger gambit, but it also is, to me, so much more exciting because it means, we get this right, which I think we're, touch wood, on the route to getting it right. It's a generational shift, right? And Neil, more so because for two things. One, a lot of people used to say to me, oh yeah, but people have too many apps on their phone, they're not going to use this. I say, it doesn't work like that. People have about 20 apps on their phone on average. The top 10 global apps, the next 5 are national apps, right? It should be like what you use for taxis or what you use for XYZ. The remaining 5 are hyperlocal. And because hyperlocal means every hyperlocal is different local, your neighborhood pizza joint, your salon, your accountant, what have you, means you're always going to have a different 5. And every country is always going to have a different set of national apps and regional apps. The global may stay constant, but that's fine. We don't really care about those as much. So then I think this has become magnified by, well, what is an app? We think about an app as a construct on a phone. I'm telling you that in the next 3 years, this conversation might have a piece of software running around it. That got constructed just before we started and finished as soon as we put the phone down or we disconnect the Zoom. And so that means like going from a world where you have 500 million developers of demand, you might be in a world where you have 5 billion developers of demand, right? Because conversations will be created and conversations will be powered by software around them.
Wow, incredibly exciting. I've got to ask, where do you go from here, though? What's next for Builder? And are they, I probably appreciate you can't share too much, but are there any upcoming projects or plans that you're particularly excited about, tech trends, or as a whole, how do you see the future of app development evolving, and what role do you see yourselves playing in that?
Look, I think we're too little to say we have a role. I think, and it would be very arrogant for us to say that as well, I think we have a strategy that will allow us to continue to deliver the dreams of our customers that have digital dreams. That is the most important strategy. I think the second is we got to keep our feet on the ground, especially because technology is going through such evolutionary changes right now. But there is a difference between the hype and the reality. And so keeping your feet grounded means you're not making random changes to strategy, especially because customers rely on us to make the right decision for them. But I think what's important really is continue to expand the base, right? Getting more small businesses in, learning from that. I'm very, very excited about Success Beyond Code. I'm really excited that more and more customers, and we're going to be putting Natasha front and center of our world. So, there's, in the not so distant future, you could just pick up the phone and speak to her. And that's it. Imagine a world, where you get on the phone, you speak to Natasha, she sounds kind of human, kind of not human, which is perfect because we don't want to mislead you that you were speaking to a human. And then you say, I run a pizza joint. I need to be able to sell pizza to my neighborhood. She asks you some questions, and then you put the phone down, you get a text message with a prototype. You click on it, you're like, oh my God, that's exactly what I want. And then she says, sends you another text or a WhatsApp saying, can you send me your logo and so on and so forth, or point me to your website. You point her to the website. A few hours later, it's populated with your logo and your colors, and it's live. And all you had to do was make a phone call, right? And to me, that's what we're moving towards.
Wow, that's an incredibly exciting vision for the future there. And I cannot thank you enough for coming on here and sharing your insights and experiences. But before I let you go, where would you point everyone listening to?
Please come to Builder.ai. And if you have any questions, you can also ping me on Twitter at Sachin Duggal.
Well, absolutely love chatting with you today. As I said, we covered so much in a short amount of time. I'd love to stay in touch with you, get you back on the podcast at a later date, see how this world is evolving, because the speed of technological change at the moment is breathtaking, but I think equally it's never going to move this slow again, and that's what makes it exciting. So a big thank you to our guest today, the chief wizard at Builder.ai. I love that job title, but also, most importantly, for sharing his innovative approach to democratizing software development. And I think we've learned today that anyone with an idea can now build an app. And I love how it addresses those common fears of software developments and what makes it stand out from other low-code and no-code platforms. And for me, it's just fascinating to see how it's turning the tables and enabling non-tech savvy individuals bring their ideas to life. There's got to be something magical in that, hasn't there? So if you've been inspired by today's episode and want to learn more, please head over to their website, Builder.ai. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, rate and review this podcast, because it really does help bring more guests like Sachin over to the show. So remember, kids, stay curious, stay inspired, keep innovating, and until next time, don't be a stranger.